Howdy folks, how you going?
Tell us about going on to the forecourt.
Oh look, I went out there to listen. I felt these people have made a long journey to Parliament and we as parliamentarians should be there to hear them. I have to say it was quite difficult to hear a lot of what was being said, but nonetheless I thought it was important to be out there.
You seem to really keep your distance from them though, had a lot of police around you?
Yeah, well look, the police said, look, we don't want you guys to be out there because we feel that it might incite people to behave badly. I don't think that was a concern. I told them, I'm sorry, it's important for democracy to go ahead. Nonetheless, I don't think I would have got much by getting much closer. All I knew was that I could hear what they were saying and it was useful to be out there to listen.
Are you open to cutting down the length of the select committee period for this bill?
No, it's actually critical that while there's 19,000 people out there, 5 million people today got the ability to make a submission on the Treaty Principles Bill. You know, real democracy is one person, one vote, one opportunity to submit on each piece of legislation, which New Zealanders will now have. And this is the first time in our history that all New Zealanders have had the opportunity to say, well, this is actually what we think the treaty should mean, the lens through which we should view it in 2024.
This is the biggest hīkoi Parliament has ever seen. Do you now think the Treaty Principles Bill was a bad idea?
Well, first of all, there were nearly twice as many people protesting the size of Dunedin Hospital in a city half the size not so long ago. Second of all, the idea that the Treaty Principles Bill is a bad idea because a lot of people marched, actually it's because there are people in New Zealand who view themselves not as people, not as New Zealanders, but primarily as a group based on ancestry that we need to have this discussion. So if anything, it's persuaded me that it's even more important that so many people have the opportunity to get out and make submissions and talk about what the bill and therefore our treaty actually means to us.
At least 35,000 people, you know, every street around Parliament block. This is a pretty sizable protest.
Well, I apologise, I relied on RNZ's reporting, but you know, you got... Okay, so even then you're at the same level as a protest about a hospital in a city, third the size of Wellington. You've got to put these things in a bit of perspective here, and you've got to remember there's another 5 million people out there who are working and going to school and have a view as well. They're going to be able to express that view if they choose through the Select Committee submission process.
You said that you went out there to hear from the people. What's the message that you heard?
Look, I heard a lot of people who don't want to have a dialogue. I would have liked to have gone out and spoken. At the end of last week, I got a message from someone at the marae I affiliate to saying, look, we'd like to help you with language for any speaking, but it became pretty clear that they didn't want to have that kind of dialogue. And you know what, I suspect the reason is that if I was to get out there and speak and give my side of the story, it would really deflate a lot of the angst and hatred that's been wound up on TikTok and the caricature that they've tried to create of me. Actually, the organisers didn't want that, Te Pāti Māori didn't want that, because that would seriously deflate a lot of their kaupapa.
Did you have a chance to speak on Thursday? Didn't you have your voice heard on Thursday?
Well, I'm not denying that, I'm just saying it would have been nice to speak there, but they didn't want that. So,
How long were you out there?
Look, I don't take a stopwatch in everything I do, but 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, it's a significant crowd. Have you ever seen something like that before? Have you ever fronted something like that before?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I haven't been at it, but as I say, you know, there was a protest, it turns out, of slightly larger size, you know, in a city half the size just a couple of weeks ago.
This bill is clearly upsetting a lot of people. How can you maintain that it's not divisive?
People are upset by the fact that our treaty has been interpreted as a partnership between two groups based on ancestry. That's what's created the division for far too long in this country. This bill has not created the division. It has uncovered the division that's been building up as the courts have increasingly interpreted.
They're marching here today, this hīkoi, is because of this bill.
No, this bill has uncovered the division. This bill has shown a lot of people that actually our treaty should be about equal rights for all. Now, if you disagree with that, then yeah, sure, you might march, but that doesn't make the bill wrong.
Hobson's pledge have started a Scaredy Cat Luxon.
I beg your pardon?
Hobson's pledge have started a Scaredy Cat Luxon campaign. Do you agree with that description of Luxon's approach to the bill?
No, look, I mean, I've known Chris well for 10 years now. I don't attack people on a personal basis, and I don't think that's a fair characterisation of Chris. Obviously we have a different view on this treaty principles bill, but I wouldn't impugn Chris's character over it.
Hey, what do you make of Jerry Brownlee banning the media from being down on the forecourt during this hīkoi?
Look, I didn't know that was the rule Jerry had made, but he's the Speaker, he has the right to do it. I've got to say, I think if you want a contrast in performance, there's the way that Jerry Brownlee has handled this hīkoi versus the puerile and immature behaviour of Trevor Mallard spraying people and playing bad music, which ended up leading to a massive conflagration. So, I think actually it's a good thing.
Back then people were camping out here. Do you think they are similar protests?
Well, what are you saying, that if they set up camp, then Jerry should turn the sprinklers on them?
Can I ask you about just your use of language before? You were talking about an agreement based on ancestry. In the past you've said based on race. Can you explain why you've changed from race to ancestry?
No, because it's not a deliberate choice, but I think ancestry works well. It seems to describe better the relationship between you and your forebears, which is really the defining difference here. Alrighty folks, well look, thank you very much for your questions. Oh, sorry.
Is there anything that you will take away from today?
This conversation is really hard but necessary, and New Zealand is capable of having it. Some people get angry from time to time, but that doesn't take away the validity of having a proper discussion about what our founding document really means to us in the modern time.
But many have pointed out that conversation has been happening for hundreds of years now, so
Really? So has there ever been an opportunity for every New Zealander to have a say about how we interpret the treaty in modern times? It's never happened before. This is unprecedented today, opening those submissions, the first time ever, and I think that's a really important thing. And people who are in favour of having conversations should welcome that. For some reason they didn't. What's really interesting is people who say, oh, this bill won't go past first reading, they still don't want that to happen because they know it opens up a profound conversation that's open to everyone, and that's what real democracy means, having a say about the constitutional rules you have to live under.
So this protest when Chris Finlayson,
Sorry.
when Chris Finlayson,
Sorry, yes.
when Chris Finlayson and Jenny Shipley had their say on what they thought about your bill, both of whom have significant experience in the area, you attacked them personally the next day.
Well, frankly, I think the conversation, the comments that Jenny Shipley made was so far out there. Was the only way to respond. Well, I think when a former Prime Minister says that for a Member of Parliament to introduce a piece of legislation and explain it patiently and I think articulately, that is somehow tantamount to civil war. I mean, I don't know what else you say about that. And frankly, I'm the only person I've attacked. Chris Finlayson, I've just criticised his manner, which I'm sure he probably takes as a compliment when he tucks himself into bed at night.
Are you happy with the Select Committee saying they intend to finish hearings by the end of February?
Look, it's up to them how they do it, but basically that's not an unusual timeline. Basically it means that they've got 3.5 months until they finish hearings and then 2.5 months to deliberate. I mean, that sounds about right to me.
Well, submissions close January 7th, you take out the rest of January, presumably they've got about a month of hearings. Yeah, well, a month of hearings is not an insignificant amount of time. I mean, you get 6 months. You take your point about taking out the rest of January, but Brett, I've got to tell you, some people do go back to work early. So let's say they've got 6 weeks to hear submissions out of 6 months. Well, that's 1 week in 4 of the 6 months they've got that's devoted to hearing submissions. I don't think that's too bad at all. Alrighty, folks.
Will you be seconding yourself onto the Select Committee?
I don't think ministers are allowed to do that, but Todd Stevenson is the ACT Party member on that committee and he's a sharp cookie. Thank you very much.